welcome to the latest episode of Story Talkies. This month we are talking to Kiran. He is a multifaceted personality. He has seen journey of brands. He started his own company. He has a multifaceted personality. As I said, he's a rock climber. He's an author. He is a brand consultant. And in between, he does a lot more. Today, we get to understand what his perspective on branding is. We also understand what he has seen the journey of brand communication in the past couple of decades, and also understand how does he manage all that that he does in a day. So, welcome to Story Talkies, Kiran. It's a pleasure hosting you. How do you manage this multifaceted personality? And before we started, we were talking about the fact that you, as you said, that you are a rock climber during the weekend, brand consultant during the day, and an author during the night. So you seem to pack a lot in 24 hours. Or do you have more? We all have 24, maybe you have 48. Do you?
There's no plan, Nidhi. It's so. For instance, when people ask me, "Do you work on weekends?" I said yes, because I think this idea of work-life balance is flawed. I think of it as work-life integration. So when you think of work-life integration, you have a better sense. Um, uh, if on a weekend I'm climbing and there is a client call, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I will just tell him that I'm going to call you 2 hours later. So the moment you make that as part of it, so my favorite phrase for that is, don't push the river. The river is flowing. Don't try and change its course. Just flow with it. And that's how all of this has happened. So, but uh, to be fair to circumstances, I started writing only after I started writing seriously only after I started Chlorophyll in 1999. Somehow there was a sense of greater control over my time as opposed to being part of a large corporate.
I have heard many authors say that they actually end up writing more when they have too much to do. And when you are sitting idle, it's not generally that you bring out your best work. Does that work that way?
I have not thought of it, but I must tell you that whatever it is, whether it is genetics or I don't believe in God as a person, but whatever it is, it's a gift. Writing is as easy as breathing for me. Uh, I have never had a writer's block. It's only a question of getting the plot right and things like that. Those are the things I had to learn. So the first time I got a hint that what I write, I've been writing since childhood. I've been published since childhood. But the first time I got a hint of that was in 1995 when I won the award for the Indo-UK short story writing uh, competition. I was second out of the 3 awards that were given. So that's when I said, okay, whatever I'm writing is making sense to some audience out there, right? And that's how in 99 when then I took it up seriously. I said, okay, let me finish this. I have this tremendous respect for the civilization called India, and all these 3 books are uh, literary. It's literary fiction, so if you enjoy language, you'll enjoy those books. They are not fast-paced thrillers except the third one, and but they're all entrenched in the wisdom of India. So the first one is based on Shankaracharya's shloka. There is a very famous shloka called Atma Shatakam, which has 6. It's called the Song of the Soul. So that is the leitmotif of that first book, which is called Halfway Up the Mountain. Then the second one is based on Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, you have 3 constitutions, and each constitution actually makes a person look at reality differently. So there are 3 characters in that, and their story is woven. And the third one is based on Swami Samartha Ramdas, who was a saint around the time that Shivaji Maharaj was there. And he had this unique combination of mind, body, and spirit evolved in all three axes. And so there is a cab driver who's trying to live up to his tenets. So that's the third book. So they are all based on very, very Indian themes and Indian wisdom.
But you also mentioned about a phrase that you said, if you enjoy language, you'll like them. So the reason I pick up on that phrase is that language somehow in today's world, in the world when everyone is typing on WhatsApp, uh, has become a casualty. I understand the youth. I understand the exuberance that they bring in, but in the kind of business that we are in, the business of communication, we see language being used very frivolously,
Yes.
both by people who are in their communication between themselves, especially, and also when I've seen people writing to clients, people writing to pretty senior people, either in the organization or outside it, in a very casual, uh,
Yes.
a typical WhatsApp language. Also, the communication, brand communication, if you see. I am not trying to be a Puritan and say you have to be a typical British English putting in, but the somewhere that respect for the person sitting on the other side is taking a back seat in the hurry of us trying to put something out. Do you feel that? Do you see that happening?
It's an evolution, Nidhi. So if you look at the evolution of English per se, then 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, you can see that there is a movement towards simplicity, towards a movement towards. So if you remember this language that was invented called Esperanto, which was meant to be a universal language, right? So their spellings are uh, very, very different. I think the question is not about language as much as the other word that you used, which is respect. If there is no respect in the relationship, then I'm now there could be two ways of looking at it. Either I have respect, but I'm not able to express it, and I actually don't have respect. These are two totally different situations that can occur, whether in business or in personal life. It's very difficult to get out of it. If you look at the statistics today in India on YouTube, not more than 6 to 7% of videos consumed are in English. Everything else in languages, in regional languages, right? And 90% of what is consumed online is videos. So you can see that each language brings its own culture, its own context. And therefore, the question is about what you said. Am I am I being respectful in my relationship? So in by when I'm respectful in my relationship, I will be more careful about how I talk to people. So there is this lack of respect. So I'll tell you one. I remember somebody calling me up on a Sunday, for a job or whatever. Um, so I said, write not sorry, not calling me, wrote an email to me saying, Miss Kiran, I want a job, etc., etc. So I said, since all of you are so much online, I would have expected you to at least Google and find out whether I'm man or woman. So she wrote back saying, who do you think you are? Piyush Pandey. So now this is a person who is looking for a job, and now that's the relationship. I don't think it is to do with that error. There are others who have said Miss Kiran, and then they say, I'm extremely sorry, I shouldn't have done this, etc. That's the nub, that's the crux of it, that I actually do not have respect for you, and therefore I tend to use language very frivolously.
So that means what you're saying is that the way we use language conveys uh, our intent, our respect for
Yes.
the person on the other right side. Uh,
So I could make an error in that language, but then if I'm respectful, I would turn around and say, okay, it's an error. I don't think it'll happen again.
Talking about taking the language question further, when you started chlorophyll, interesting name, very interesting name, I must say. I would like to know the genesis of it, and but also I'm sure you will address issues of brand communication, and I'm sure you would be facing different challenges over the years that you have been working, and that the challenges it must have kept evolving. So how, if you can take us on a journey of how the brand communication has evolved and the challenges
Yes.
it's facing today versus the challenges it was facing, say, a
Yes.
couple of decades back.
Beautiful. So let me answer the first question first. When I decided in 99 to start Chlorophyll, I knew that I didn't want to be another ad agency. Before that, I was the CEO and Chief Creative Officer of an agency called Clarion that got taken over by a network agency called Bates, and I didn't want to continue uh, in a network agency because I call it management by Excel sheet. So it's all about numbers. That entire human touch is not there. And I came up with this idea that I would have a brand consultancy. The focus would be on brand and not communication. So it's much more upstream. So my partners, I had this genius of a partner called Anand Halve, who passed away in 2016. We said, okay, the first thing we need to do is we need to practice what we preach. So if you're preaching that branding is about alignment, that you take a central brand idea and then you align everything to it. You align your brand name, your logo, your internal processes, everything to that one single idea. If that is so, that is what we are going to talk about, then our brand name should also reflect what we stand for. So we said, okay, then therefore we need to put down what we stand for. Therefore, okay, I was very sure that I didn't want a huge agency, few people. We started with only 10 people. And therefore, we said the first value that you need to practice is efficiency. The second is creativity. Creativity, fundamentally, without that, you can't have either great strategy or great communication. And the third was not drawing attention to ourselves. I didn't like the idea of uh, going in for awards and uh, putting the focus on yourself rather than on the work that you do. The first name we thought of was Salt, because salt is incredibly efficient. A little bit here and there in food, and you will have a fight either between cook and husband or cook and wife or wife and husband, because it changes the taste. But salt is not creative, it doesn't create new things. I'm an organic chemistry graduate, so I thought of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is considered one of the world's most efficient molecules, because even a single photon, when it lands on a chlorophyll molecule, it starts photosynthesis, it starts generating energy. Second is it's creative. The classic definition of creativity is that creativity combines two hitherto unconnected frames of reference and creates a totally third new one, which is what it does. So nobody till then had combined water and carbon dioxide and created food or energy or life. And finally, it does not draw attention to itself. Very few people remember what chlorophyll is, even though there was once a toothpaste called chlorophyll. There is a rock band also called chlorophyll, but otherwise most people do not know what chlorophyll is. At some of my reunions, because I was an organic chemistry graduate, some of my old friends say this is Kiran and he makes chloroform, because chloroform they know much more than chlorophyll. So that's the idea of chlorophyll. Has there been a change in brand communication? Oh, it's it's huge. There is a tectonic shift in brand communication. So I actually written a tiny book called The Third Era of Branding. Uh, and what it means is that if you look at the relationship of the brand and its consumer, it has dramatically shifted. So if you take it, uh, let's say the first era as till 2003. 2003 is like a milestone where the first social media app called MySpace got 1 million users. So let's take that as a milestone. Till 2003, if you looked at the structure of brand communication, then you had a brand. The brand would be owned by a private company or the government or a nation. Then you had facilitators, so people like you and me, people who facilitated the communication, brand consultants or advertising agencies or media companies. And then there was a consumer who received that communication. But there was not enough of an opportunity for that consumer to talk back. So it was more a monologue and not a dialogue or a multi-log. 2003 is when social media happened, and this structure changed. So from brand and facilitator and consumer, in between that came peer group. So the entire online peer group, which means that the end consumer was no longer listening to just the brand, they were listening to the peer group. When we want to go to a new restaurant, you and I will first go to Zomato and check out what that restaurant is about. So you're listening to peer group because you're trusting the peer group, saying they have no axe to grind, they have no agenda, therefore they will be telling me the truth more than the brand. We go to Amazon, we look at the reviews and then buy stuff. If you take the third era of branding, which is now, which is, let's say, post pandemic, suddenly there are multiple new mega trends that have emerged. The entire mega trend of health, for instance, health in all its dimensions, whether it is the pandemic that woke you up to it, or the endemic lifestyle diseases that have happened, the entire sense of hygiene that we need to have, that is sustainability. So if you look at data, close to 85% of the top 250 companies around the world now have a very defined specific sustainability goal, right? So sustainability has become a big thing. So fundamentally what brands are now saying is that I will not just think about what I offer my current customer, but I have to bring into play the way I do business. Look at the future, look at the future of the earth, look at future generations, and align my agenda to that. So that's the third era, as I say, of branding. Therefore, brand communications has undergone what I'm calling the tectonic shift. So every single time I'm talking about my brand, I have to say, okay, what is my higher purpose? What am I doing for the earth? What am I doing for future generations? What am I doing about sustainability? So those, without that, your current generation uh, is not going to be proud of your brand, is not going to be wanting to join your brand, is not going to buy into it, and so on and so forth.
So, Kiran, when as you mentioned that uh, the tectonic shift has happened. So, what essentially has happened is that the brands initially used to talk about what they do, right? What my product is and why should you buy? Now they are also expected to talk about how they do it. What is the larger impact that they are having beyond their initial sphere of influence?
Yes.
And
Yes.
therefore, they themselves have to rise above just buying and selling and
Yes.
building a larger
Yes.
image, right?
Yes.
And in doing so, and initially, if you see, we are storytellers, and as I said, that many people mistake us to be, typical storytellers who actually create stories, tell you stories of grandma. But having said that, this whole discipline of business storytelling has evolved in the past half a decade, if not more. And what we have seen is that earlier storytelling was only the domain of advertising, right?
Correct.
But today, in every communication that the brand or the companies are putting out with respect to the product, with respect to their positioning, also about their leaders, their anything that they are doing, either in a B2C space or a B2B space, the whole focus on storytelling has uh, emerged stronger. Is it
Yes.
because that they understand that transactional communication is not going to cut ice?
Yes. It relates back to the way the consumer has changed. So when you look at the millennials and when you look at Generation Y, there is enough research to show that they want to belong to a brand, or they want to be associated with a brand that has a higher purpose, because it's, the age at which youngsters are able to engage with the world has dropped, right? So there is this, I remember, I think there is a 9-year-old girl in Allahabad who has taken the state to court for XYZ reason. So they are exposed and they're able to do this. So that is the change that has happened at the consumer end. So the thing about storytelling is the fundamental difference. As I said, if you look at the second era of branding, what has happened in storytelling is that if it is not based on facts, you get caught out, which wasn't the thing earlier. There, I don't know if you've heard of a brand called Everlane. Everlane invented the word radical transparency. So when they were selling you, say, a shoe online, they actually told you how much the leather cost, how much the polishing cost, how much the stitching cost, and how much their profit is, which was radical, right? And everybody kind of adopted them. I think 4 years later or something, Washington Post very recently did a story on them saying, while all of this is true, it's not entirely correct. Sometimes it's misled. That is part one. Part two is that there is radical transparency in the pricing of products, but in the way that they deal with their own employees, there is no radical transparency. That entire story has gone for a toss because somebody has found that out, right? Nike is famous for being in touch with their consumers. They had a building in their campus named after a gentleman called Salazar. I think Roberto Salazar. Roberto Salazar got caught in some kind of Me Too campaign, and their own employees said that you have to either destroy this building or change the name of the building. So these are demands that storytelling can no longer be incorrect. While you're telling that story to inspire multiple stakeholders, that's the other shift that has happened right now. Earlier you thought of the relationship of the brand only with the customer. Now we have to look at even shareholders. I don't know if you've heard of this lady called Amy Domini, who started uh, uh, SRI, socially responsible investing. And there the shareholders are telling the brand that, look, if you do not follow XYZ practices, if you're not, we no longer want just profits. We want profits, planet, and people. So if you are following practices which are harmful to people and planet, we don't want to. We will give up our shares. So even shareholders, it's not just customers, even shareholders are telling brands what is it that they want to be done. That's why that storytelling, the poster boy, let's say, of sustainability is a brand called Patagonia, right? Patagonia, that gentleman invented. I'm also more fond of Patagonia because the guy who founded it is a rock climber, right? So they are saying that 1% of your revenue, not profits, because profits can be mythical. 1% of your revenue should be given to the earth. And they have created a club of about 100 organizations in the US which give that 1% of the revenue. Exactly what you said about selling and buying. Their ad last year said, don't buy this product of mine. Because what they were saying is that you have to use this mantra of reduce, reuse, and recycle. So reduce what you are buying, and therefore don't buy this jacket. And if you have bought this jacket in the past, bring it to us. If there's something wrong, we'll find a way of reusing it. So those are the things. It's not the storytelling as in advertising. Storytelling is about how you're running your business and how truthfully you're running your business.
So what you're then saying is that the fact-based storytelling, where you are connecting to the people, you are telling, conveying what you're doing in a convincing manner, and sticking to the facts because you would be found out if you did anything
Yes.
otherwise,
Yes.
right? But the storytelling elements comes in the way you talk because it has to be communicated, it has to be
Yes.
consumed by the people.
Yes.
That's
I
that's
think
an
the one
important.
word there, Nidhi, is inspiration. Does it inspire me? Does it inspire me to join your cause? Does it inspire me to, so uh, one brand called Allbirds. Allbirds is a brand in Australia. They make running shoes out of all kinds of recycled materials, say crushed shells or wool. The thing is that they perform as well as any other running shoe, but they are made of this recyclable. So Adidas has tied up with them saying, okay, we want to make a shoe which has the lowest carbon footprint, because running shoes are a big disaster when it comes to sustainability. We, for a population of 7 billion human beings, we buy 21 billion shoes per year. When they are no longer in use, what happens to them? Because they are not biodegradable. Just imagine the amount of landfill that is created.
Basically, rising for a cause is what businesses are now looked up to, and they have to live up to that expectation. Uh, Moving a bit away from the brand communication now to the whole bigger problem of talent. We have been hearing about the talent war. I think this is the longest war being fought on the face of earth, and I don't see it uh,
Yes.
coming to an end anytime soon. So, why there is a lot where we hear about the challenges that the young people, the employees face on the face of different kind of demands made by businesses on them. There also remains a challenge of the young minds coming into the pool and the kind of tenure that they typically have in an organization, which is coming down drastically.
Correct. Correct.
They keep hopping from one place to the other. One is because there's a huge lot of opportunities in front of them. There
Correct.
and second is that the attention span is also much lesser. It's like I like and then so in that sense, the kind of business we are in, we need people who are imbued with a particular style, with a particular way of doing things, and communication, branding. It's not something that you just learn in the college and start coming and practicing. It is something that that mean I think your learning starts from the first day in office, right? So
Yes.
if given that the tenure is so short these days, there's given that the employers are under pressure as much as the employees are, how do we really build a good talent pool?
It goes back, Nidhi, to that same question. What about your organization can actually inspire people? Right. So you're absolutely right. We face the same thing. Extremely talented people who have learned very fast, who have taken responsibility, have said, "My friends are saying, why are you in chlorophyll for more than 5 years?" It's just a uh, need for novelty that they are. But you have to live up, live. You have to live with that, right? But the question is, um, most of the people in chlorophyll have been with me for over 15 years, 15 or 20 years, right? Are they there because they have no options, or are they there because there is a culture that is like, there is that famous phrase called culture eats strategy for breakfast, because culture is more critical. So is that more attractive? And if you ask them, we have done this survey many times over, what they mention is that culture. So there is a beautiful book called Reinventing Organizations, written by a gentleman called Lalu, a French guy, and he talks about various levels of organization. And one of the highest level is a teal organization, TEAL. There are colors. He's based his entire thing on a gentleman, a philosopher called Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber has this integrated theory of evolution, and in that he mentions this teal organization. So that is what we are going towards as chlorophyll. A teal organization has distributed decision making. So if for one of the things that we do in chlorophyll is that each month we have a different CEO. So I don't behave like a CEO. Each month there is a different CEO who holds the weekly meetings, and they decide the agenda for chlorophyll. So somebody can turn around and say, I think we are not investing enough in learning and development, and therefore then we take up that agenda. There might be somebody else who comes and says, one of the things I have told everybody is that, look, your growth is not my responsibility. Your growth is your responsibility. I will facilitate it to any limit. So if you want to grow into this area of life, fine. If so, most of the people in chlorophyll are able to pursue many things, and they pursue it openly. So somebody is doing mind body uh, education. Somebody is doing do it yourself, and they are all being frustrated. Somebody wants to become a film director. They're all working there and they are facilitated. So the question is, can the organization culturally have that inspiration quotient which will help the employee to stay back?
Completely agree. And but what we have found is that the mid career or the top level people with more experience, they are the ones who kind of stay back, have appreciate the
Yes,
culture. But for people who are jumping around for say 6 months, 1 year, that time frame, the trouble is that how do we they even sit best get time to experience a culture, because by the time they do it, they've already into somewhere something else. So,
absolutely.
and that is happening in around the market. I think somewhere the employees are also to be blamed, because you know that person has just joined another company and you're kind of taking that. So you are also taking a risk of getting someone who may not stay with you. And
Correct.
therefore, what happens is the talent which is moving around doesn't have the depth as may have a breadth, but it's very shallow. And
Yes,
eventually, maybe in a couple of years, it will start hitting the industry, because the
yes,
talent pool would not be the one that you would need, right? Is that
yes.
something that you think happening?
Which is again also complicated by work from home. So culture building is very difficult when you have 80% or 90% of the people working from home, right? Uh, how do we get around that? I think the work from home has a flip side, which means while you are losing people who want to try out new things and want to join new organization, you have access to multiple people around the world who fit the bill. So we have had interns from Singapore and LA who had heard of chlorophyll and wanted to work with it. So that's the only positive of this current scenario that I can see. That now you have access to people. People don't have to move. If somebody has a ailing parent or a ailing dog or a pet, and but they fit the bill, they are right people. They don't have to move from. We have somebody who works for chlorophyll staying in Oroville. Somebody is in Kanpur. Somebody is in Pune. Uh, that is the flip side of this work from home and the pandemic thing, that you now have access to another set of people who you would have never imagined would work for you. That's the positive side that I look at.
In fact, that's the principle we operate in.
Yes.
Of I think 60% of our team is in different parts of the country.
Correct.
Yes, for someone in Guwahati, someone in Bhubaneswar, in Delhi, in different parts of the country. And the beauty of it is that we all come from different cultural backgrounds, and we
Correct.
are able to bring that
Correct.
synergy. So that's what I said that the pandemic did, right? It kind of washed away the boundaries, the physical
Yes.
boundaries. Finally, since we are about storytelling and writing, and you are a celebrated writer yourself, we cannot let you go without understanding some mantras of writing. People who are who aspire to write, people who are trying to write, who are already writing, what are the things that you can tell them in terms of making it easier for them, uh, so that the right words flow at the right time?
I think this is a phrase somebody used, and it's my favorite phrase. All writing is rewriting. Yeah. It is impossible. Whether you're writing an email, whether you're writing a one-page summary of the minutes or what happened between client and you, or whether you're writing a short story, a poem, you have to rewrite. You write it, place it away, come back to it, check it. That is one part of it. Second, I think, and the bigger one is the entire notion of empathy. Can you imagine whoever you're writing for sitting in front of you? I learned a new phrase. There is a gentleman, a comic artist called Alan Alda. You must have heard of him. I think a serial called Smash, and he's written a book. So he has learned theater, he's learned improvisation, all of that, and he talks about Can you hear with your eyes? Can you look at the body language of the person? Can you understand that person very well? And then write for that. Because in when you're doing self-expression, when I'm writing a novel, then it's self-expression. There is no fixed person for whom I'm writing. They will self-select. Those who like that kind of stuff will read it. But in business, you're writing for a purpose. You're writing to solve a problem. So can you have this ability to understand exactly where that person is and then write to it? So first, understanding of the receiver, imagining that person sitting, when I'm writing a presentation, whether I'm writing a mail, I'm imagining what that person's situation is or how that person is feeling, thinking, you know, and then write to that. That is part one. Having done that, second part is rewriting. Is it clear? Is it concise? Is it confusing? Any of those things will get clear when you're rewriting stuff. So when my second novel had three characters. So initially I wrote it from first person for each character. So each character, and therefore I had to reinvent the way each one spoke, right? Because there are three different characters. One of the editors that the publisher had said, why don't you try third person? So I rewrote the entire book, all those 40,000 words from the third person. So it is like somebody speaking about those three people. Finally, the editor went back and said, no, I think your initial thing of each person speaking in their own language, in their own style is better. So let's go back to that. That's what I mean by rewriting.
So basically, what happens is once you write a piece, you fall in love with it and so much that you don't want to touch it. So I
Correct.
think you need to fall out of your own piece, fall
Absolutely.
out of love of your own piece and be
Yeah.
brutally honest about it.
Yeah.
And that's the honest writing coming through. Thanks, Kiran. It's been really wonderful speaking to you. And by speaking to you, I understand the depth. You are a voracious reader, and you must be reading a lot of books and a lot of different perspectives that you have gained. I think we must have another session sometime where we talk about the kind of reading you've had, and
Yes.
I'm sure the listeners and viewers of this story talkies would really gain a lot listening to you. Real pleasure having you on Story Talkies, Kiran.
Thank you. Thank you. It is my privilege. And thank you to you and your team for having me.